Welcome to my 12th O-Gauge layout construction video. In this video we begin with scene 6. I was experimenting with some styrofoam construction for scenery. Haven't tried this before. Using some 2-inch foam and a hot knife, just forming and then using some of the styrofoam glue, the blue glue, and the caulking gun to put it in place. This is going to be the foundation. I plan to put the plaster cloth over. And here fitting the tunnel and using one of my tallest, longest cars to test fit. And then just through this scene here, starting to put some styrofoam in place. If you haven't worked with this, the blue glue takes quite a while to dry, so I usually would be overnight. Kind of looks like toothpaste a little bit. And once it's dry, it's fine, but it's something you can't rush. You have to take your time. And here I have the tunnel portals being added. I painted those in advance using some either black, or I used some of that earth tone just to spray that. And so it took a little bit of time to do that to allow the glue to set and then come back and shoot it with some more paint. Then I added in some chicken grit. This is some red chicken grit. It's fine, by the way, so if you can find this at a feed store, works pretty good for ballast. I just recommend if you do it to sift it out. Of course, sift out all the fines to a screen and then save that chunk. If not, you can get a lot of dust from it. But pretty realistic effect and very low cost. Again, you can get a bag now for like $6 for a full bag of it. Some more shots of the styrofoam. Again, just experimenting with that. I haven't used this before. I typically in the past have used cardboard webbing only and then put plaster cloth over that. During this time I transitioned and put some black on the fascia pieces and painted that so to bring us some negative space to it here. Really cleans up the lines like that. There's some different shots around the layout. You can see where the future control panels go for these different sections. And we'll talk about that a little bit coming up. And back to scene 6, this is where I started to add some plaster cloth. I did not use any cardboard webbing yet. I decided to wait and go ahead and just put the plaster cloth on and see that. And you'll see a little bit later here I did use the webbing. I prefer to do that also. It's kind of the tried and true, but you start laying out a single and then a double layer of plaster cloth. And this is something I bought in bulk also. Just found some up on eBay. It's kind of a what do you call, like a medical grade. A little bit smaller sheets, but it works great. The same as you'd find from others, and a lot less money. The Woodland Scenics actually is really good, being my preferred, but I'm just trying to reduce costs since there's so much of it. And again, I carried on using some more of the styrofoam, experimenting with and how I could again make some bracing. What I really like about the styrofoam is how strong it is and lightweight. You know, that's an attraction these days in modeling. It came out okay. There's some funny things about here. I probably could have done better, but I'm doing the best I can with what there is there. Just trying to use some shapes and not be uniform about it. Try to be random. One note: if you do this, if you use the hot knife, you want to ventilate. It gets pretty smoky when you cut it. And also too, it doesn't cut a thin slice like a little wire. The hot knife will chew up at least a half to 3/4 of an inch worth of material right away. And even as it starts to cool, it's still what's the word I want? Shrinking, for lack of better words. So here it is with some cardboard webbing, which is I use a hot glue gun, and this goes really fast. Just get your cardboard strips ready to go, and the hot glue gun and some clamps, and it goes really fast. What's nice with the cardboard webbing is you can move it any way you want to. If you want to, have an outcropping or something indented, you can just move it and form it the way you want to get the desired effect. I've used staples in the past. The hot glue gun is great and it goes really quickly with that. Sets up well. I've also used Elmer's glue. Elmer's glue works fine too, it just takes a little bit longer. And once that's set, then you can start with the plaster cloth, and that again goes fast also. You can hard shell up and just to do all this in just a matter of a couple of hours. Go pretty quickly. Just to build your base, and then later, of course, we'll add more plaster over it, just a thin layer. You continue to go from there, but to get that good hard shell, a single layer works just fine. Going to 2 layers is really ideal if you can. Especially with this medical grade, it's a little thinner, it's a little more porous, but it does get the desired effect. These are some molds that they're Woodland Scenics molds, and I just pour some plaster in there and then break them out, let them dry, and you can cut and form these and then basically butter them on the back with plaster and then stick them in place, various places on the layout. Now here I had a little challenge. I've never tried to match scenery to a backdrop. I typically have just worked on the scenery and just let it flow. So trying to match the color proved to be a challenge, and I left out some of the pictures on purpose because I had done some other colors or attempted some other colors and it was a fail. Right here I ended up I found some basically some overstock that was really old at Walmart. It was called Mushroom Cap. It was the color, and used that, and then sprayed some matte finish. Basically, I took some Mod Podge is what it was, and then I can't remember the exact mix, maybe 50-50 water Mod Podge, and then just sprayed that on, and that gives a satin color. Then I had sprinkled grass over that, different shades of grass. I try to use 3 or 4 different colors, some greens and some browns to get the desired effect, and then just keep spraying with the Mod Podge, and then that dulls and gets rid of that shiny gloss. This is the other side of the tunnel where I'm finishing the sides, putting the top on, experimenting with the tunnel portal. Since these are on curves, it was challenging to get the tunnel portal just right so that way the biggest cars, longest passenger cars, etc. would not rub on the portals. In some areas have to go to wider portals so it will fit. In here I started to lay out some 1-inch material, and then you can see on the sides where I used the hot knife to shape it. Experimenting with that and see how that's going to come out. It's still unfinished at this time, but it almost looks good enough to me that I think I could add some latex paint to it and just color it up and get some good desired effect with that. It's looking like rocks, but we'll see. So here on the right, these are going fairly quickly. On the right, you can see it's getting close to the desired effect where those trees are on the right there. It's getting closer where it's again has that dull matte with some different colored green. And I'm starting to make some trees. I'll have a future video on that where I show got a bunch of different size variation of pine trees to add. Start to blend it in. There you go. That's getting closer to it right there. We're at the desired effect. In the background, of course, still the shiny mushroom cap tan, which is, of course, too shiny, but we'll dull that up. So this is starting to come together. Still has quite a bit to go yet, but again, starting to like this. See where it might go. If I add some plaster over it to shape it a little bit more before I put the paint and other rock texture to it. But it's interesting with the styrofoam what you can do with a hot knife. And again, kind of looks like maybe the rock has been chiseled a bit through here. So curious to see where that goes. Now I'm switching to a control panel. This is over in scene 1, part of scene 1, scene 2. And the bottom 3 are the lower level, and the top is the upper deck and sidings. And this is where I added in the control switches and the LEDs for these for the tortoise motors. And here's the part number for the switches that I use, and the yeah, these DP-DT switches. These are great, and these Jameco red and green LEDs. Basically, if you change the polarity, you'll get a different color. And the 3/16 hole, these are the mount lens that the LEDs mount into. So basically just had to drill the aluminum plate and then mount them, mount the LEDs where I want them, get that in place, and then start to wire up the switches. So the orange leads are power in, and then the outgoing is power out through the LED to the switch motor. The switch motor on these versus when I did my previous panels, I just used the, I believe it's 600 ohm resistors that are built into the tortoise motor, so I found that I did not need to use resistors here, and this worked great. And depending on the polarity, again, it would cause the light to change red to green. So here you go. Now you can see the switch panel. So if in the up position, well, it depends on the angle, but the idea is if it's straight through, whatever, it would be green, and then the other one would be red. So more to come later. Thanks so much for watching.